My goodness, my goodness. What another monumental day in this 49ers story. Every single chapter seems to bring another shocking twist. We've already been through so many of them. And today had to top it all. The 49ers were playing what had been the top ranked offense in the league in the Miami Dolphins. The 49ers entered the game as true Super Bowl contenders. They leave the game as, well, we're not really sure, even though they dominated that Dolphins top-ranked offense because the 49ers have lost Jimmy Garoppolo, their quarterback for the season. Just really a tragic loss, a fractured foot. He's done. The 49ers have now lost two starting quarterbacks this year, Trey Lance, week 2, right here on this field at Levi Stadium, and now Jimmy Garoppolo for the year. And we had been talking about it a lot. Jimmy Garoppolo was playing top 3 football entering this game. So this is a huge loss to the 49ers. But there's silver lining at the same time. Their defense played like a championship caliber unit. I said on Twitter, the 49ers are going to have to become the 85 Bears if they want to win the Super Bowl. They're going to have to be that dominant defensively, or the 2000 Ravens. You name it. Name a dominant defense in NFL history. If the 49ers want to win the Super Bowl this year, they're going to have to be that good. And then they turned around. Garoppolo got hurt on the game's first drive. The 49ers turned around, and they were that good. That was the best offense in football statistically. Tua Tagovailoa was over 9 adjusted net yards per attempt. The speed of the Dolphins, I mean, we saw it on the first play. They hit Trent Sherfield. The 49ers were just a little bit out of position on the back end, and it was an untouched 75-yard touchdown for the Dolphins. But then they're, not counting that play or the bomb to Tyreek Hill in the fourth quarter, which for the 49ers ended their 4-game second-half shutout streak. Outside of those two breakdowns, 49ers only allowed 4.3 yards per play to a Miami offense that was essentially gaining twice as much as that. I mean, they did what I think no other defense in the league can do against Miami in this game. So, I mean, you talk about losing Jimmy Garoppolo and the blow that it is, and don't let anybody tell you that Brock Purdy's on Jimmy Garoppolo's level. He's not. Brock Purdy's not a top 3 efficiency quarterback in the NFL. That much is clear. And that's nothing against Brock Purdy. I mean, I'm going to talk about him in a bit. He did a lot of really encouraging stuff today. But just as the 49ers had suffered that blow on the game's first drive, their defense turned around and did that against the Miami Dolphins. And my piece is going to be coming out in a little bit on The Athletic. And it's funny because Kyle Shanahan, I guess at the team meeting on Saturday night, had mentioned that, I don't think the defensive line played as well as the linebackers last week against the Saints. And Nick Bosa took it really personally. And then Nick Bosa showed up on this field, delivered 3 sacks, leads the league with 14 and a half sacks. He's a complete monster. And still remembered that when Kyle Shanahan tried to hug him after his last sack, Nick Bosa forced a fumble from Tua Tagovailoa. Dre Greenlaw returned that fumble for a touchdown. And the 49ers had the route was on, right? And Nick Bosa goes up to Kyle Shanahan and said, Shanahan thinks that he's about to hug him. The stadium's going crazy. 49ers defense is elite again. And Shanahan thinks that Bosa's there to celebrate. And Bosa just looks at him stone-faced and says, "Don't talk shit about me again." And Kyle Shanahan's a smart guy. Kyle Shanahan calculated in his head. He said, well, I just saw one of the most dominant defensive performances you'll ever see about this guy that I criticized yesterday. So Shanahan said, you know what? I think that I may keep on talking some shit. Because it works, because it motivates you. And, how symbolic that this happened not only the night before a game in which the 49ers would need their defense to step up the most, but now when we look at the larger picture of this season. The 49ers have improved to 8-4. They're still in first place in the NFC West. They have 5 to play in the regular season. They're on track to make the playoffs. And if they're going to reach their predetermined goals, which is to win a Super Bowl, if they're going to keep on plowing toward that, they're going to need their defense to morph to a supernatural level. And we saw some supernatural play from Nick Bosa especially, but the entire defense today. So it's fitting that Kyle Shanahan lit that fire under Nick Bosa and the defensive line right before this game. Now, speaking of that defensive line, they returned Eric Armstead. And, if you want to look at a reason that this 49ers defense might become even better moving forward. Eric Armstead, during this wonderful performance, he was on a pitch count. He didn't play his full load. Now, if Eric Armstead continues working back into the mix, which he should do because it didn't look like he got hurt in this game, he was fine after this game, he won't be on as much of a pitch count. And the pitch count severely limited the 49ers defense. The score is 23-17. Second half, the Dolphins are driving. Dre Greenlaw made a sensational stop on Tyreek Hill in the open field. Talk about that. A linebacker tackling the fastest player in football like Dre Greenlaw did. That was sensational. But 2 plays after that, it was 3rd down and 2, right? It was 3rd down and 2 for the Miami Dolphins. And Hassan Ridgeway got hurt. And this was at a point in the game where Eric Armstead is not in because he's on the pitch count. The 49ers trying to preserve him in his first game back from foot and ankle injuries. Hassan Ridgeway hurt his pectoral muscle, had to come out of the game. So the 49ers had to abandon their caution in the pitch count, and they had to bring in Eric Armstead. And the Dolphins didn't move a single yard after that. 0 yards. 0 yards from that point. I call it the closer. It's like baseball. The closer for the 49ers is their first-team defensive line, featuring Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead on the field at the same time. And the pitch count made the 49ers not have that first-team offensive line for a lot of crucial moments in the second half of this game, and it showed. But when Armstead was in the game, the way that he pushed the pocket back was breathtaking. And if we're talking about the 49ers defense now without Jimmy Garoppolo needing to be this 85 Bears all-pro unit, well, it's going to start with having both Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa back on the field. So Armstead's return in this game was a big deal. It's going to continue with the linebacker play. Fred Warner completely shut down the middle of the field in this game. He's an elite middle field defender. He has been that way ever since he joined the 49ers in 2018. He's only gotten better in that regard. Just a total monster at 6'4". And the Dolphins, they had made their hay in becoming the number 1 defense in the NFL with the middle of the field. Tua had thrown and completed passes to the intermediate middle more than any quarterback by like 16 completions entering this game. That was from NFL Next Gen Stats. And Fred Warner just dissuaded the Dolphins from throwing over the middle. He broke up an early pass over there, and then Tua only completed 2 passes to the intermediate middle. So it completely changed the complexion of this game after the opening touchdown to Trent Sherfield, which was close to an intermediate middle throw. It might have been a short middle throw. But anyway, only 2 completions for the Dolphins where they usually make their hay. So, I talked so much about the 49ers needing to throw the Dolphins' quick game off to make sure they couldn't just throw intermediate. So the pass rush would have a chance to get home against the backup offensive tackles. And the 49ers coverage tweaks did that beautifully. And it opened up the door for the pass rush to work against those backup offensive tackles. Tua got rattled. Tua came in with 3 picks, threw 2 on 2 consecutive throws to Jimmy Ward and Diomino Lenore. Don't ever say that Jimmy Ward isn't suited to play that slot cornerback position. He's adapting really well. Went over the top of Jeff Wilson Jr. to make that play. Speaking of Jeff Wilson Jr., 1 carry for 3 yards, 8 carries for 33 yards for Wilson and Raheem Mostert combined. Deebo Samuel was clapping back at Raheem Mostert in the locker room. I thought that the Dolphins had more talent. Oh, wait, that's what Deebo Samuel said after this game. But the 49ers totally shut down the run game. They didn't shut down the short pass game from the Dolphins, but they dissuaded Tua from going back to it over and over again. So they set it up for their pass rush, the 49ers did. And the pass rush dominated with Nick Bosa. That's the defensive formula, and you can execute it because you have Fred Warner, you have Dre Greenlaw running down Tyreek Hill, you have fast linebackers, you have a good secondary, and obviously with Bosa and now Eric Armstead up front, you can morph into an elite defense. I had talked about this week, the 49ers still weren't as good as the 2019 defense. With Armstead back, they could approach the 2019 defense in its prime. And that's what's going to be necessary for the 49ers to still achieve their goals without Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, that's tremendously gut-wrenching news. 49ers found out at halftime. They walked in, saw Jimmy in the training room, consoled him. All you can do, football's like war. Football is like war. When you're out on that battlefield in the middle of this long marathon season, you don't know what's going to hit next. You don't know that Trey Lance is going to get hurt week 2. You don't know that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get hurt in week 13. But you build as deep of a roster as possible. You develop as many guys as possible. And with each successive blow, you lick your wounds, you take inventory, and then you just get up and you keep fighting. And the 49ers have to keep fighting with Brock Purdy. And Brock Purdy looked, to me, today like he might be worthy of the challenge. He's a rookie. He was Mr. Irrelevant. He was the final pick of the draft, but he threw 37 times today. Kyle Shanahan initially didn't trust Brock Purdy. They had a 3rd and 1 at midfield. Miami ran a disrespectful front. It was like a goal line front for the Dolphins. And it should have been a play action pass because you can't run against the goal line front, right? Should have been a play fake. No, it wasn't a play fake. Christian McCaffrey tackled for a loss. 49ers had a punt. But from that moment forward, Kyle Shanahan realized that, I have nothing to lose. It's either do or die with Brock Purdy. This is all we have left. We have two starting quarterbacks are done for the season in Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. And no, Trey Lance is not coming back this year. It's Purdy's show. 49ers signed Josh Johnson, by the way, journeyman who's been on 14 different teams. 3rd stint with the 49ers. They picked him off the Denver practice squad. So it's going to be Josh Johnson as the backup. Jacob Eason's on the practice squad. But it's Purdy's show now, right? And Shanahan said, I can't lose just running into a brick wall. If they're going to stack the box against Brock Purdy, let's see what Brock Purdy has. And Brock Purdy is certainly courageous. The 49ers talked about how much confidence he has after this game, and he threw 37 times. They only rushed for like 3.6 or 3.7 per carry, the 49ers did. 37 throws. I call Jimmy Garoppolo a short-range gunslinger. He tries to really fit the ball into tight windows inside. Brock Purdy's got a lot of the same qualities. And he also avoided the devastating giveaway, just like Jimmy Garoppolo had avoided the devastating giveaways so far this year. So I'm not saying that Brock Purdy is as good as Jimmy Garoppolo. The people trying to say that's a preposterous thought. Brock Purdy still has a lot more seasoning to go. But he's got weapons, and those weapons can space the field. They could compromise defenses, and if he could avoid the deadly giveaway, he sets the table for the 49ers defense to do its job. So he really pushed some of those passes over the middle of the field. It was very 2017 Jimmy-esque. He had an interception that was essentially an arm punt. I thought he might have been able to hit Christian McCaffrey on the check down, but we're not going to woulda, shoulda, Monday morning quarterback, woulda, shoulda, coulda Monday morning quarterback this all too much. At the end of the day, Brock Purdy did his job. The final numbers, I have the box score right here. Brock Purdy, 25 of 37 for 210 yards. I mean, it's not overly efficient, right? It was a lot of shorter completions. But again, no major mistakes for Brock Purdy. And the 49ers were something like 7 of 14 or 7 of 15 on 3rd down when Brock was in the game, which was good enough to beat Miami. Now, they're going to face better defenses than this Miami team. We talked about this Miami team not having a good defense. But for being a 7th-round pick, final pick of the draft, to be thrown into his first NFL game against a team that was heating him up with blitzes, Brock Purdy was impressive today. And again, you have to look at it in the complementary formula. The 49ers combine offense, defense, and special teams. You have to, the sum of all 3 parts has to reach a certain level of proficiency. And that defense can carry most of the weight, right? That's what the 49ers are counting on. I don't think that the offense is going to be completely inept with Brock Purdy. I think we saw that today. They weren't completely inept. They're going to face tougher defenses starting next week with Tampa Bay and Tom Brady coming in. He's obviously an offensive player, but the Buccaneers have a good defense. But we'll see if Brock Purdy can continue to helm a decently efficient offense. And the 49ers have some breathing room. They're in first place in the NFC West right now. And if he can do that, then it sets the table for the defense, a dominant 49ers defense, to be the locomotive that pulls the train. That's how you have to look at this if you're the 49ers. And hey, picking up Christian McCaffrey is all the more important now. They scored that touchdown at the end of the first half. Christian McCaffrey, the outlet man, was such a huge part of that for the 49ers. He's going to be Brock Purdy's best friend moving forward. And, the 49ers defense is brash. They're confident now. Oh, lights went out. Must be time for me to probably, here, let's see if we could turn them on. Probably going to be time for me to get going here if they're turning on. There we go. Good. Lights back on. So the 49ers defense is brash. It's confident now. It's, Fred Warner said, Brock's going to be fine. because Brock's played against the best defense in practice for 13 weeks now. He'll be fine. The 49ers defense had lost some of that brashness after the Chiefs embarrassed them 5 weeks ago. But they got it back today, right? They had shut out their previous 4 opponents over the second half. They shut out the Saints over the game. But they had to do something great against a top-tier offense. And they did that today against the Dolphins. Now the defense can go around saying we're the best unit in the league. They have full right to that. And the 49ers need that more than ever now because the offense is not going to be the same elite offense that it had a chance to be with Brock Purdy learning instead of Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. But it's all about a larger complementary equation. It's not just about your offense or not just about your defense. It's about the sum of all the parts. And that's the big question facing the 49ers moving forward. Everybody's going to freak out right now. Everybody's, oh, season over, season that. Let's just wait to see what the sum of the parts is going to be. Because today it was good enough against one of the better teams in the NFL and perhaps the best offense in the NFL. Today it was good enough against the Dolphins. I don't think the Buccaneers are as good as the Dolphins coming in next week. So if the 49ers can find a way to keep stacking wins, look out, because Brock Purdy might be getting better over the course of the season. I just advocate don't rush to judgments all that quickly because, again, football's a battle. And in the heat of battle, sometimes you're going to take a hit that you don't expect. 49ers didn't expect Jimmy Garoppolo to be rolled up on there. Like he had a big defensive lineman fall on his foot and break his foot. I mean, any other quarterback in the same position, same result, right? So that happened. And now the 49ers have to adapt. And you adapt by going to the next man up. And that's Brock Purdy. So it's been a hell of a ride. It's going to continue to be a hell of a ride. This is an unusual position. It was an unusual situation in the 49ers locker room, that's for sure, because they were celebrating their return to true defensive dominance, but mourning the loss of a quarterback that had saved their season up until this point in Jimmy Garoppolo. It's a tragic story in a lot of ways, but the 49ers can make it an inspiring one. And the future's unwritten. Every single week is a different chapter in the novel. So we're going to turn the page to the next chapter and see what it's all about for the 49ers. All right, I'm going to have a much more robust look at this in a little bit. I've got to get out of Levi Stadium now. They're already turning off the lights on me, obviously. Field looks nice. It was a tough place for the 49ers today, but it was also a place where they recorded perhaps, not even perhaps, this was the site of the 49ers' most impressive performance of the season. They're 8-4. They're in first place in the NFC West. Tom Brady is coming next. And all we can do is sit back and enjoy the story, because what a story it's been, full of ups and downs, and today saw both. But the 49ers still have their future in front of them in this 2022 season. It's going to be really, really interesting. Can the defense lead the way to glory? Today was a promising start in that regard, but they have a whole lot more work cut out for them on what was ultimately a somber day that the 49ers lost Jimmy Garoppolo for the rest of this season. So let's unpack this all as we move forward. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk to you all soon.